If you could change one thing about the current youth system in this nation, what would it be?
I think there's too much instruction.
I'm elated to speak to possibly the singular gent who seems to have figured out the system better than maybe any other American parent sitting before me. It's a joy to welcome Mr. Rusty Aaronson.
Thank you, Roger. Pleasure to be here. Good afternoon.
Rusty, I wanted to talk to you today because I'm pretty sure there's no other parent in the United States currently who has had a similar track record as yours. You know, so far you have your daughter Jaden starring for the Shawnee High School Renegades, but your two gents who have emerged from high school, both soaring in Europe in the professional leagues. Paxten now at Eintracht Frankfurt. Brenden commanded a $30 million fee when he signed for Leeds. Started for the United States at the 2022 World Cup. All of this happened while you had an actual day job, a day job and a half in the security and investigations industry. Rusty, so far you are 2 for 2 in terms of creating kids who are out of high school straight into the European big leagues. Other than prime genetic material, what are the most important tenets of successful youth development? Because you'd know better than anybody.
You know, I think for us, it was early on, it was just keeping it fun. There was nothing better than coming down on a Saturday morning and watching the Premier League, right? And hear Brendan's feet come running down the stairs. I get goosebumps thinking about that because he would dive onto the couch with his little sippy bottle and we'd be watching Liverpool together. Then Paxton, right? He'd be sitting in his pack and play, whether he liked it or not, facing, the TV. And it literally started with that, Roger. It started with just getting them to like and understand, like, what are we doing here Saturday mornings? And then from there, you drop the ball, you keep it simple. I think our biggest emphasis, even with my daughter, was don't push. Like, don't push them. Expose them to some really good stuff as much as you can expose them to. I mean, I was a season ticket holder to the Philadelphia Union. I wanted my kids to experience an MLS team at home, right? One that I had the Cosmos. We would drive an hour and 45 minutes up when I was in high school and watch Pele. So I wanted my kids to enjoy it first. They played every sport. They played baseball, didn't enjoy it. Played lacrosse, didn't enjoy it. They played basketball and enjoyed it and loved it, but they're not going to be. They knew their limits with basketball. They just gravitated to it, and every time they showed more interest, I tried to feed them. It's never the same path.
From sippy cups and pack and plays into your unfinished basement in Medford, New Jersey, population 24,000. Brendan came on our show and told us how you laid down 20 square yards of green carpet, put tiny nets down on the other end. It was known apparently as the dungeon. Tell us what would go on in there.
No.
And how formative it was in your kids' game.
The dungeon sounds like I'm kicking them down the stairs, Roger, and telling them to get down there and play. It was not that. It was the laboratory. Okay, let's go there. It was the only room in the house, Roger, that my wife didn't have say in. Okay,
so the decorating.
Yeah, of the decorating. And again, like I said, I always had to get creative with, what. Okay, they've outgrown this. What do we do next? So I didn't want to fancy. I didn't want to turf the whole base. I wanted it to be a little rough, right? So I threw carpeting down. If their shins bothered them, put more socks on, cushion it up a little bit. Our basement was literally spectacular. Looking back at that, it was spectacular. When they were little, the kids would be over all night. On snow days, they'd be over. Their friends would be over. They'd be playing 2v2, 3v3. And it wasn't that big. When you look back, I go down there now, and I'm like, now my wife got to that, of course. She finished it, and we're out. But They were getting too big for that, Roger.
I'm fascinated by the dungeon. I believe it even became a tradition before Christmas Eve dinner, quick game down
Yeah.
there. But is that where they learned the necessity of their preternatural close control? Standing on a square of tape as you drill balls at them, they'd have to trap, dribble around the other brother and the perimeter. You know it when you see it in Aaronson first touch on the field.
I mean, it wasn't a big space at all. And what it was for, and it was great because it had walls, right? So you would hear 5-6 days a week, you'd hear the ball just pounding on the wall, and it would be one of the boys. It would just be them, hitting it, turning, hitting the other way, turning. Everything was first touch. I mean, that's really where I knew that if they were going to be successful, look, my kids aren't going to be 6'1" athletic specimens. If they were going to be good soccer players, they were going to have a good first touch and technically sound.
I love it. Rusty Aaronson letting his kids smash balls off the wall. Big on youth development, not so much on home resale value. What are some of the situational elements that went right for your kids? How did you almost design their lives to give them the best chance to become truly great football players?
Well, listen, it goes without saying that, they both helped each other, right? Without one, the other one and vice versa is not where they are. I think both boys are super competitive. Paxten was just at the cusp of being able to keep up with Brenden, but then there were times where he would fall, and that just made him angrier. That just made him want to kind of keep up. They had each other, and absolutely no pressure whatsoever. And I didn't know if pressure should be applied. I didn't really know. I didn't read all the books on how to do it right, like be a perfect a father and all of that. Like, I just figured, what, if your kids like you, they're going to respond, right? If they like what they're doing, and if you're not constantly on them on what they've done wrong, and how they did it wrong, and if you just let them learn and you let them figure things out with some guidance, I think that's the thing that I look back and what did I do? I always kept it fun, and I did not put pressure on them.
If you could change one thing about the current youth system in this nation, what would it be?
I think there's too much instruction. I think the kids don't play enough. I think the free play teaches the game. I think for me, if it'd be one thing, I think at the younger ages, they are trying to do more of it, but I think just playing with less guys talking and just playing in environments where if you go to Europe, right, you'll go to a park or you'll go to a tennis court, and you will always see, we have them here, they're like hockey rinks, street hockey rinks, right? In Europe, they're everywhere. We're spending millions and millions of dollars on big turf fields and all these complexes, and it's so structured right now. There are some clubs trying to get it right, but there's not enough time in the day. So how do you do it? You do it at the younger ages. You do it from 7 to 12, right? And that period right there is when I think if I was to change one thing, that would be it. Because if you go to Argentina and you go to some of these South American countries, if a kid can't, receive and pass the ball cleanly at 11, 10, 9, they're not making it. They're so far behind. I used to, when my kids would feel all good about themselves and Paxten would be cocky, he'd be up, my father would dare him to get up on this platform and juggle the ball that was this big and then throw stuff at him. He would feel all great. He'd get 100 or whatever it was up on this little square. And then I'd show him a video of a girl in Portugal doing the same thing that got 2,000. Meanwhile, he got 150. But the internet also plays a huge role in what are these kids doing? Like, what are they doing in Portugal? And what are they doing? They all seem to be, at the younger ages, getting a lot of touches on the ball. A lot, right? And if you watch us and you watch a lot of youth and talent programs, you show up to a training and they're standing in line, right? They're standing in line. 10 of them waiting to do one thing. So it's critical, but it's true. Like, how do you do it? I can't answer that.
Rusty, you've gone 2 for 2 in terms of kids so far who have found their place in the professional game and then some. What would you say simply to all who are listening is the single most important lesson you've learned along the way?
Again, singles difficult. I've learned a lot. I think patience. Is the biggest thing. With Brenden, it was he just was shot out. Right, he was playing with Bethlehem Steel in 2019, and literally in a two and a half year span, he just took off. You have to have relationships with your kids, right, on the field, off the field, because they're your kids forever. You don't want your kids turning and I see it too much. I see kids on the sidelines screaming at their parents. I think patience is just really undervalued with how kids develop. I think they're absorbing all the negativity even to this day. Paxton's my guy that he doesn't need a phone call before a game or after a game where he doesn't play well, or Paxton's just kind of steady and I got this, right? Where Brenden is my guy that if he doesn't FaceTime me before a game, there's something up. And they all get the same patience from Janelle and I, right? And it's hard. Listen, when you have social media, when you have people attacking, again, Brenden, 2019, he had an Indiana Hoosier hat on. We were like, we're going to Bloomington. This is awesome. And now he's playing Champions League, right? You're like, holy shit. We didn't have time to even, what is going on? Like, Roger Bennett wants to talk to me. Like, why? And the whole Medford Messi thing rolled through our town. Where, it's like, what? That bothered Brenden for a while. Like, he's like, Dad, he's the greatest player. Even, I go, but Brenden, it's Medford. He goes, I don't care. I don't even want to, he might get mad at me. I go, Brenden, stop. Stop. It's not going to get back to the king. Stop. And even when Brenden was at the Union and the reporters would say, he's too scrawny. Look at him. He's, how is he ever going to, that bothers you as a parent. So I think, going back to what I said with the patience, you have to have patience as a parent to manage yourself, right? So you don't just snap and say, something wrong or give the wrong message to your son about, hey, you need to do this better because this guy over here is saying this. In time, right? If you just continue to stay on the path, the trees are going to fall behind you every which way. Our job is to keep the boys and Jaden focused on states, just staying on the path and being patient with it. And any parent who asks me that, trust me, I get a lot of secret sauce questions, right? There's no secret sauce, right? My guys are challenged every single day. It is not easy. It is hard every single day for them. They fight. They do what they can to get through the day, and then you have the next day. And that's, from a parent standpoint, that's all we can do, Roger. Stay patient and believe in your kid. Like, whether they play at, Indiana, Villanova, wherever they play, you're going to have good times, bad times. And there's a little thing that I have at Fearless. We have our little training facility. It's not very big, but the boys will be living in there when they get back for the weeks that they're home. But there is a line that I took from Southampton, and we were over there with my daughter, and we were playing at Southampton, at the club. And everywhere I walked at the club, I'm looking at these lines all through the walls. And I asked one of the good old boys there, I said, man, I see these lines everywhere. What are these? And he goes, that's a player's development, right? Everywhere, up, down. I loved it because that is, I stole it and I took it and I put it on my walls at Fearless, because any parent that's looking for that secret sauce, right, or any parent that wants to talk about how to get, little Mindy there, it's those lines. They have to come first, because if you're not ready for the downs, the player has to get through all of those emotions, all of those different development peaks and valleys. And that really hit home. And I brought that home and told the boys to go, this is going on the wall, and they loved it.
Listen to the full version of this podcast and all our podcasts wherever you get your pods. But first, subscribe here for more Men in Blazers videos and courage.